What happens when communities take energy into their own hands?
From New Zealand to Canada, we're looking at the community side of geothermal.
And we'll also hear about how local ownership, cultural values, and indigenous leaderships are reshaping the way that geothermal projects are done.
Plus a story from Ogoni, Japan, where the Waita model is showing us a way forward for involving communities in geothermal projects.
This is Power to the People. Welcome back to GeoTV. I'm Gabriella Skog.
And I'm Boel Stier. Today we're looking at an important question for geothermal. What does it look like when communities lead?
Because history shows that not all geothermal projects have started with community as the center. In several countries, rapid development has raised concerns about water use, contamination, and even environmental stress. And this truly shows that growth without dialogue can create tension.
It sure can. Rotorua in New Zealand is a place where this tension was once felt. The hot springs that are central to Māori culture seem to be threatened by geothermal development. But this is also the place where community leadership managed to turn it all around.
In Rotorua, the relationship between people and geothermal goes back centuries. In the Māori community, Whakarewarewa, the springs and geysers has always been a part of daily life. It's a place for bathing, cooking, healing, and gathering. Each spring has a name, is known, and respected.
But this relationship has also been challenged. With colonization came a business aspect and tourism. And this during last century, by mid last century, hundreds of boreholes were drilled, obviously, for home heating and business use. And around 1970s, geysers and hot springs were visibly declining.
Through it all of these challenges the community has endured. Today, Whakarewarewa is still a place where geothermal shapes well-being and identity. Each spring is cared for as a taonga, meaning a treasure or a life force. And I truly think that this is a story that we all can learn from, how a community can shape how the development of geothermal proceeds. To help us understand this topic better, we spoke with Sharon Porter, a representative and a resident of the Whakarewarewa village. Sharon has been actively involved in community leadership for several years, and in this particular conversation, she speaks on behalf of the Whakarewarewa village.
So our relationship with geothermal has always been one of deep connection. And so for generations, we've used the hot springs, the pools and the steam to cook our food, to bathe, to heal, and in the old days, to be able to warm our homes. Geothermal's been part of our everyday life. It's not just a convenience. Our lives and our community, the way we lived was generated around geothermal. And so it is a taonga that has shaped how we've lived as a community. If you wanted to know anything that was going on in our village, when we were bathing and when the woman would go down to bathe, that would be when you'd find everything out. But I guess over time, outside pressures too and government regulations have restricted our access, and so wells and bores have been shut down, features declined, and of course the way we lived with geothermal shifted. What was once our daily life has become something monitored, more managed, and at times taken out of our control. So our relationship with geothermal has never been broken. We just continue to live with it, alongside it, to protect it, and most importantly, to be able to pass it. From a child growing up, I never understood the regulations, the council, what our local regional councils were doing in terms of the geothermal. And I guess this is where my passion for wanting to know what is going on in that space has come from. is that in the 1980s in Rotorua, the council decided to close the bores or the wells that they had created to heat some of the homes within the wider Rotorua city. When the council were looking to heat some of the homes, provide geothermal heating to some of the homes in Rotorua city, at the time of them developing that, which I think was around about the 50s or the 60s, there wasn't a lot of information known about how that type of use was going to affect not only the village and the way in which we live, but it would affect the surface features, which of course for tourism wasn't a great thing. And that was the other reason why I think we ended up having intervention from central government, where central government came up and said, actually, no, we can't. We do need to look at closing those bores, because if the surface features are declining, and of course the Pohutu Geyser was the stage show, I guess, for New Zealand. So from when I was a little girl growing up here in the village, I felt so small because it felt so big, and of course with the decline of that, the performance we've lost from Pohutu will never come back. And we've seen that those bore closures have now been about 40 years closed. We are seeing some return of some of those features, but some of those features that we lost have been lost forever now. The status for me is that it's a work in progress. I think anything from the 80s and 90s and is an improvement. And of course, when we talk about the health of the system, and when we talk about the connectedness between the people and the resource, for us it very much is exactly that. If the resource is declining, and if part of that system is hurt, then we are hurt. Whilst we have it back now, there was hurt and loss experienced because we had lost access to land that we had lived on, been on, and in my case for 6 generations of my family had been here. And so to have lost that through Crown confiscation, and it's nice to be kind of winding things back now and having them returned to Māori and to iwi. I guess as the regulator and as the person that distributes or provides people access to geothermal, it was really good of them to be able to initiate and to create a space where Māori and our Māori communities within our Rotorua system, they created us a space to be able to have those types of conversations with them. Because I guess you don't know what you don't know, and unless you reach out and ask those communities what makes that important, then I think it's really hard for decision makers to actually know what that is. There's definitely work for improvement. There's work for improvement everywhere. It's good to know what we want and where we're going. It's also important to be able to work with decision makers going forward. Just within Aotearoa, there's definitely lots of exploration, and there's lots of new technologies and things that are coming into place. And I think whilst we support the development of new technology, I think there is just a fine line and balance to ensure that it doesn't take off on its own, and just making sure that that we're making some checks on those values. Are we leaving a resource? Are we leaving the taonga for the next generation? Is my children and my grandchildren going to be able to utilise and have access to something we've had access to for the last 7 generations? It's not always just about what you can take, that it's also about what we can give back and how we protect it and preserve it.
Community-led geothermal isn't only about resource protection, it's also about creating opportunities.
And that's where Furusato Netsuden's Waita model comes in. It's a system of local ownership in Ogoni, Japan, where geothermal supports small businesses from farming to food processing and even coffee roasting.
I also really think that the Waita model is a powerful reminder of how geothermal can fuel local economies and keep the benefits close to home. Let's have a look at that.
I have the honor to be sitting here with Minako-san, one of the founders of Shinetsu Coffee here up in Oguni. Thank you for having me here today. What does it mean when companies like Furusato Netsu then comes in and have partnerships and work here?
私も9年前に福岡からここに移住してきたんですけど、ふるさと熱電さんも私もその地域のよその人がここに来ることで、この地域資源の新たなその価値の創造っていうものをしていくことが私たちのなんかできる役割だと思うので、この価値っていうのをもっともっと可能性を広げてどんどん発信していくことが大切だと思いますし、同時に地域の人たちの理解とか協力がないとそれはできないので、地域の人たちと共に地域の人たちも利益があって、お互いが楽しくハッピーに暮らしてこのエリアをより良い地域にしていけるといいかなと思います。
ありがとうございます。
ここはもともと消防小屋で少人数しか集まれなかったんですけど、地域の方もみんな地域外からいろんな人を集めたくて、この場所をワイタ会が整備しました。
So with the money of the power plant, the revenue, you could actually build something where the community can gather around and meet. Is that correct?
そうです。ワイタ会の皆さんはお子さんやお孫さんが帰ってくるようなまちづくりをしたいと思ってます。そのためにこの公園を作って地域が少しでも豊かになるっていうところを作ってきました。
So this is actually using the earth and what we have to reinvest in the community, to make sure that the community grows and continues to develop.
そうですね。地熱をうまく活用することによって地域の人も街が変わっていくのが目で見て分かりますし、観光スポットが増えることで子や孫が少しでも帰ってくるという事例が作れます。
This is interesting because what the Waita model has done is there's a geothermal coffee shop. There's this and there's the wood carpenting as well, all based off what earth is giving us. And this is how you can actually build up a community back again. So it's a lot to learn from this, and especially when it comes to that this is something that the community and Furusato Net Sudan has done together. So I think it's a great example of how we should act, building a better world together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very well done.
Thank you.
Of course, the industry itself also has a huge role to play in this.
That's why we invited Ormat, a company with decades of experience, to share their perspective. From Kenya to the US, they've been working alongside communities for the long term.
When entering new region at Ormat, we really see ourselves as long-term partners in the regions where we work. Before starting new project, we sit down early with local stakeholders, listen to their priorities and concerns, and look for ways to work together. Our aim is not just bring renewable energy, but to build real shared value with the communities from day one. One good example is in Kenya. Most of our employees and suppliers live in or near the local communities. Beyond jobs, we invest in programs that make a difference, like supporting local schools, offering scholarships for women and children, and to access education, and providing health services. So the impact goes beyond clear power. It's about creating opportunities and long-term value. So for us, sustainability isn't a side project. It's really part of everything we do. Since our start. You can see it environmentally in our geothermal plants, where we replace about 2.5 million tons of CO2 equivalent in 2024 alone. And so in social safety comes first. And most of our workforce comes straight from the local communities. We also invest in trainings, and because we believe leadership starts from within. And on governance side, our board actively oversees our sustainability strategy with a board committee for sustainability, and we share our progress openly. So I believe that having geothermal plants close to community means people benefit from 24/7 renewable energy that's reliable and affordable. At the same time, we create jobs, work with local suppliers, and invest things the community needs. That combination supports climate resilient, economic growth, and social stability.
In Canada, indigenous leadership is at the center of one of the country's first geothermal projects.
The Fort Nelson First Nation is leading the development of Tudica Geothermal in British Columbia, transforming a former gas field into a source of clean power.
For the community, this is about more than just energy, though. It's a path toward new opportunities and also a path toward restoring balance after decades of fossil fuel extraction on their lands.
It's a powerful example of how indigenous values and leadership can shape a project from the ground up. From Canada to Japan and New Zealand, one thing stands out: when communities lead, geothermal grows stronger. And it's not only about the megawatts, it's about people, about pride and the place.
And that's also the power of putting people at the center. And it's also where geothermal shows its true value.
This episode is coming to its end, but there are still so many stories out there just waiting to be told. If you know one of them that you think we should share, please get in touch.
We're sad that this episode is coming to an end, but we'll be back next month with new stories and updates from the world of geothermal. Until then, stay curious, stay energized,
and stay hot.